On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy.
So, what's on today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, in this week's episode, it's the Grand CFZ Summit meeting.
Oh, really?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortune Zoology. This is Graham, deputy director, an old friend of mine, and we are currently driving from the top of Raleigh Hill up to the bypass, which will take us up to the Aperture roundabout, because I've just spent the afternoon having stuff done to my right foot by a charming Irish lady in the podiatry department of Bideford District Hospital. My foot has taken quite a noticeable turn for the worse, and it's a bit frightening, in fact, because I'm always very aware of what would happen if one day it just gets too much and I end up having to have my foot amputated. The idea of having to hobble around for the rest of my life on stilts, what are they called, crutches, and a prosthetic bottom limb doesn't sound very nice at all, and I very much hope this doesn't happen. But anyway, as I said, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortune Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. On the Track is, for those of you who don't know, a show that comes out every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about twice that. And this week we have got something particularly special for you. As well as the normal mixture, mélange, muddle, I can't think of anything else that begins with M. I'm going to have to shout very loud, so back in the studio, Miss Lauren can hear me. Lauren, what begins with M?
Manchester, of course.
Good, I can work with that. We have a collection of stories about hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, I think you're going to have to ask him.
I don't care what surreality is. I think it's probably something very stupid. So there.
But, as I was saying, we've got something very, very special for you this week. Recently, my old friend Darren Naish, together with Richard Freeman, my old friend and colleague, came up to visit me because they're both worried about my health declining rapidly in the old tumble-down house in which I currently live. And while they were here, I filmed some long and convoluted conversations that the three of us had. And I've decided to call them CFZ Summit meetings. And the first of them is in today's show. And it's a fascinating discussion about all sorts of cryptozoological and fortune zoological subjects. Enjoy.
This guy.
Yeah. There's this guy, and he said he was in a remote part of Alaska, virtually. And there were still trees, but it was.
You're not talking about Survivor Man, are you?
No. He was getting towards the tundra, and he was doing some sort of job. I can't remember what it was, but he was the backside of nowhere, miles away from civilization. He says he sees this thing run across the road in front of him. And the beams. It's at night. The beams from his truck, and he said it's like humanoid, but totally black, like a shadow man. And he actually gets it on film, and he was really freaked out by it. And then he found out there's this guy that does night running, and he's got this completely black suit he wears to keep him warm. But you wouldn't think someone would be that far out in the wilderness where there's bleeding grizzly bears running around.
This is a non-trivial problem. For all these claims that like we're in an area where there's no people.
Yeah.
I don't know. You do know that. Yeah, a lot of when people say like there was no way another person was there. There's no one around. There's a lot of cases where I'm just not convinced that's definitely the case.
One of the ones that I have always remembered, there was that family, and I can't remember their name. They lived on Bodmin Moor, and I knew the guy went to prison.
Yeah, it was they saw the figure with the antlers.
Yeah.
They thought it was Cernanos.
Yeah, and they thought it was, I think they thought it was Herne the Hunter, in fact.
That's right. You published that in the Goblin Universe, didn't you? You got a Goblin.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was Trish.
Yeah.
It was my friend Trish doing some pagan thing and prancing around with a pair of
I know
antlers on
somebody
her
who does
head.
exactly the same thing. Dresses up as a antlered creature.
And she wasn't trying to fake it or anything. She was just doing whatever it is she does.
Do you watch Thinker Thunker?
Yes, I do watch Thinker Thunker.
Excuse, what is Thinker Thunker?
Thinker Thunker is
He's a YouTuber
a YouTuber.
who does these videos about basically saying there's no way this can be fake. This is totally legit. There's no way this can be a person in a suit. And without being mean to him, he's been shown to be wrong again and again.
He had that face, didn't he? And it was like a model from a shop.
Yeah. There's a bunch of videos where he's like, there's no way this is made by Hollywood or something. And it's like not every single time, but nearly every single time it's like, actually it was a student film. It was faked.
Darren,
Yo.
you have gone down on record as being fairly scathing. I've got cake in my beard. Fairly scathing about quite a lot of cryptozoological subjects. What are the cryptids that you actually do think exists?
Well, you see, when you use the term exist, this is the problem because you are asking. So I'm not trying to be deliberately difficult here.
No.
Because I think we're actually on the same page here in that I think all the superstars are valid, like they exist in terms of in terms of culture and mythology. Like they're like at least is an idea. Like for example, Loch Ness Monster. It's a valid thing that exists within many people's view of the world. But of course, when people ask that, they're really asking, is there actually like a living plesiosaur?
Okay, let me rephrase it.
Yeah. That's all right. I know where I'm going with this.
Darren, what cryptozoological creatures do you believe exist within zoological frames of reference?
So then I'm going to be really, really annoying now. So there's two other problems. One of them is like what is and is not within cryptozoology. So a lot of the creatures that are based on anecdotal evidence and aren't known from specimens, and therefore could be regarded as cryptids, also could not be. They might not be cryptids. So, like, if people have seen, for example, a specific form of cat that lives on an island in the Mediterranean, for example, and there's a hypothesis that it's probably a member of the Felis libica, Felis sylvestris bunch of cats, and this is just an island where we haven't confirmed the presence of those kinds of animals. Is that a cryptid? And I don't have an answer to this, and I think it's still an open-ended question, because some people say, yeah, it totally is. It falls within the remit of, like, it's an animal reported from specimens. Bernard Hoovermans himself included that specific creature in his, like, list of cryptids. But then if you actually follow that all the way, then you've got this, like, list of hundreds and hundreds of, you know, animals that have been reported but aren't scientifically, you know, legitimately recognised. They're not represented by specimens, many of which are, like, not of interest to cryptozoologists, because cryptozoologists are, for the most part, actually looking for monsters. They are not interested in, like, small brown birds on Pacific Islands and the mystery rail of Hiva and the Mediterranean wildcat. You know what I'm saying? So
I know exactly what you're saying. That's one of the reasons the CFZ isn't the CZ. We're not the Centre for Cryptozoology. We are the Centre for Fortean Zoology, studying anything that's outside the remit of what is accepted. And, for example, I am probably more interested in the possibility that there is actually a breeding colony of great aniseed bats somewhere in Sussex that nobody's managed to find yet.
Yeah.
That fascinates the living shit out of me.
I think that when people ask you what cryptids do you believe in, if you were to start talking about a population of mouse-eared bats, or like the Richard I were just talking about, mystery giant fossa on Madagascar.
Aren't they pronounced foosh?
Yes, they are, but most English-speaking people still say fossa because we still work in English on things. Yeah.
A mighty foosh.
Yeah.
That's what we'd have to call it if we found a giant foosh.
No, but it's not a bad idea.
With like Darren.
Yo.
Going back to what it is broadly.
Yeah, it was cryptids. What cryptids?
Okay, forget the word cryptids. What mystery animals?
Yeah, well, I would say there's a number that I definitely think are worthy of, like, continued investigation. Again, I find that problematic to say because I think everything's worthy of investigation, even if I don't believe in it. But, like, in terms of are there quite possibly new animals or supposedly extinct animals that we should be looking for? You know, should there be an active site of investigation? Yeah, there's a couple, and
okay, what?
Some obscure, some not so obscure.
Give me some.
Well, in terms of, like, cryptozoological superstars, Orang Pendek, I think is, you know, there's generally quite, I wouldn't say impressed, but generally quite optimistic about the quality of some of the eyewitness accounts, where they come from, who have made them, and some of the purported bits of evidence, like, you know, hairs and tracks and stuff, makes me think that there could be a mystery primate involved in Orang Pendek. British big cats, whether you regard them as cryptids or not, I think some of the evidence there is pretty impressive, and I think people should continue to try and document, you know, the case for them.
I think the most important thing with British big cats is not to discover if they are there. I think there's enough evidence to show that some, not all of the sightings, but some of the sightings that people have reported are real. But to me, the important thing is to discover how the advent of an apex carnivore, like a big cat, how that is affecting the rest of the British ecosystem, because we wiped out all our animals, all our big cats centuries ago, all our predators, all our big predators centuries ago. Now we've got them back. How is that affecting the rest of the rest of the British ecosystem. And I don't know, have you read Isabella Tree's book, Wilding?
Yeah, about the Nep estate, I have.
Isn't it brilliant?
Yeah, it is.
And I think that the advent of big cats in Britain is going to have a lot of really good knock-on effects, and they're going to be ones that most people wouldn't think of.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, kind of similar to... I mean, there's a good argument, obviously, to be made about the reintroduction of lynxes, and which is probably underway covertly, the same as it was for beavers. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got a substantial problem with non-native deer species and the way they interact with flora and with the environment. So, yeah, if there was actually wild living predators.
And one of the things on Exmoor, for example, although I am totally against blood sports, since deer hunting on Exmoor was stopped, now you've got an enormous amount of deer on Exmoor.
Yeah.
And I think the way, well, you can see it, that when I was a boy here in this village, there were fallow deer, nothing else. Now there are no fallow deer, but there are roe deer, occasional reports of muntjac, and there are red deer. I know that because we picked them up on our trail cameras. Yeah. And that is because the population on Exmoor has exploded and they've spread westward. And there are too many deer. And I think the advent of a apex predator, I think that's can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. We know that deer are having unchecked deer populations are having a significantly negative impact, like I said, on the shape of forest communities. Yeah, and what that means for other animals and plant species, obviously.
Right, you were mentioning it earlier on this sighting of the giant foosh, which I found totally fantastic. I'd never heard of this before, and it's totally gripping and exciting.
Well,
yeah, can you tell us more about it?
I wish I I wish I knew to memory the names of the people involved and more details about the cases. So it's a sort of poorly remembered incident. But so on Madagascar, there is Cryptoprocta ferox, the foosh or fossa, and it's round about 1.5 meters long. It's round about, I guess, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 kilos. I've seen them in life because they did keep them at Marwell Zoo for a time, and I've seen them at a few other zoos. But we know there was this extinct one, Cryptoprocta spelaea, which was meant to be about sort of a quarter larger. So it's still not a gigantic animal. It's on the scale of like a small puma, or like one of the really small leopards, like Anatolian leopards, or that kind of size. So like, again, nose tip to tail tip, somewhere around about 2 meters long. So there's a team of researchers. I believe they are specifically there because of fossa research, and there is a published account in the technical mammal literature. It's in one of the mammal journals, and I can't remember which one. It's something like Journal of Mammalogy, and the author has just written this brief report. A lot of journals have sections that are, you'll know this, obviously. There's these just like brief reports where it's not the published things aren't complete articles of several pages. They're just like often brief paragraphs, like I saw foxes ganging up and eating ice pops or whatever. They're sort of like weird.
You did? Brilliant! I think we need a whole show about that.
They're weird, brief, important observations, and it's one of those. It's like a natural history note, and the researcher is describing how he and his team, they are staying in tents on a sort of sloping forested site, and the setup means that the tents are kind of staggered, with like one tent being higher than the next one, according to where they are on this sort of hill. And the researcher, he's woken up fairly early in the morning. It's getting light, I think, and assumes it's other members of his team getting up and getting ready to go out and start field work. He pokes his head out of the tent, say good morning or whatever, and out of the end of the tent, he sees the long, slender black tail of a long-tailed mammal. And he's like, well, whatever it is, it's big, because the whole animal is taking up the whole length of the tent. The tent is like 6 foot long. And he can tell like where its head end is from like sort of noises and stuff. And as he's watching, this gigantic black fossa, like nose to tail, it must be about 8 foot long, comes out of the tent. I can't remember if they make eye contact, but it looks around a bit and it is gone in a flash. And his description is it is entirely black, lustrous pelt, like a black leopard or jaguar, and except without any spots as you get on a jaguar. But entirely black, beautiful animal, really long, slender tail, exactly like a fossa, but just like massive and black. Apart from its ears, so in the living fossa, the ears do project above the top of the head. And in this animal, they didn't. They were sort of rounder and lower, shorter down. So like it didn't project above the top of the head. And he's like, whoa, this is nuts. So that is the observation. To my knowledge, and talking to Richard wasn't aware of this or other accounts. We're not aware of other accounts that have described this same kind of animal. Now, what I'm not allowed to say, and I'm not going to give away the details, is that there is... So I said there's this one extinct one, which is larger. Something else might be published at some point, which is relevant to this. And the team, I can't say any more on that. But,
yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I don't. This isn't an exercise in tricking you into saying shit.
No, it's just what I can say in public.
If someone said to me, "Do you want to go to Florida to look for the skunk ape, or do you want to go to northwest Madagascar to look for this giant foosh?" I'd be with a foosh instantly.
Well, of course.
The one other thing got to mention in connection with this, and again, Richard and I have been talking about this already, is in recent years it's been learned that there is a wild living population of feral cats somewhere in Madagascar. I can't remember where. They live quite far away from people. They're not associated with villages or whatever, and they're entirely black. They are like rangy, like really long-limbed, really long-tailed, long-bodied. With quite
cheetah-like.
Sort of. Well, of course, seeing the pictures and reading about them, you're reminded of like Keller's cats and animals like that, and the things that have been said about those. A lot of the things said about Keller's cats don't really ring true when you actually see the specimens, because I've now seen all of them. But whatever. This is a very gracile, superficially cheetah-like, rangy cat, and it does have a local name in the appropriate language, which I can't remember, but it's also sometimes called the black fossa or black foosh. So there's now this slight, there could be, hypothetically, there could be a slight confusion if you went to talk to Malagasy people in some parts of the country and asked them about the black fossa, meaning the 8 foot long one from that one observation in the tent. You could be asking them about that, and you could end up with people talking about this unusual, weird kind of wild-living feral cat, which is itself an amazing discovery, and it's amazing that exists.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
That was a public information film.
And that's about it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. On so big thank you to my guests this week, who are Dr. Darren Naish and Richard Freeman. And I want to say a big thank you to my producer Louis, who's still gallivanting around the colonies, doing his best to pretend that everything isn't going to hell in a handbasket very fast. And I want to say a big thank you to my deputy Graham, to my assistant Guinevere, and to all the other people who keep the CFZ going despite all the odds. I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? Well, I'm not actually sure, but I think it is probably, my beard's all walking, I think it's probably going to be the latest on the extraordinary saga of the Scottish lynxes, because there has been another one. So probably that's what's going to be happening on Wednesday. On Saturday, what am I going to be talking about? Well, it's going to be the second part of the summit meeting with me, Darren, and Richard. So, assuming that you're going to be there watching the show, Mr. McCrinnan, I'm talking about you, Mr. McCrinnan, you. Assuming you're there watching the show, Mr. McCrinnan, I'm going to be there because it's Saturday afternoon, doing all the gubbins I usually do on a Saturday afternoon, the live chat, the notifications and everything else I do. And if I'm there doing that and you're there watching it, I'm most certainly going to be seeing you.